Hello and welcome back to Game Domain. Today is a special day as we at Game Domain are releasing two very personal videos. Each video is a top 10 favorite games from each of the co-owners here at Game Domain. This video is going to be our head writer and co-owner Jason's top 10 favorite games of all time, and the other video we are releasing today is going to be our co-owner Domain 76's top 10 favorite games of all time. Now, with that said, let's get into what games are my top 10 favorite games of all time. This video is going to be broken down into largely two parts, because quite frankly, I couldn't fit all the games I have a deep attachment to on just a list of 10 games. Before we get into my actual 10 favorite games of all time, we are going to start off with a group of honorable mentions. In addition to my 10 games, I have a total of 10 honorable mentions that I'm going to briefly touch on one by one before we get into the bulk of the video. So with that said, please sit back and enjoy this video. I had a whole lot of fun coming up with this list and even more fun putting it together, and I hope that you will enjoy this video just as much as I do, as this has the biggest personal touch of any video on this channel to date. Mercenaries 2. Sometimes there are just games that you remember having a great deal of fun with when you were younger, not really remembering the intricate details of the game itself, but just remember vivid moments of excitement. For me, one of those games is Pandemic Studios' Mercenaries 2, which most of you probably haven't even heard of. This is one of the first Xbox 360 games I can remember playing, and was the first story that I made it through on my own. A lot of people describe this game as almost a poor man's Grand Theft Auto or Saints Row, meaning that it tries to duplicate the feel of those games, but just can't do it as well. Mercenaries 2 may not be one of the most popular games out there, but I will always remember the fun that game gave me back in the early days of the Xbox 360. Grand Theft Auto 5. Going straight from arguably the least known game that you will see in this video to probably the most popular one. GTA 5 is a game that I, like most, own on multiple consoles. Picking it up back on the Xbox 360 brought me the first wave of greatness before the game tailed off in popularity. This decrease in popularity would not last for long though, as one of the most critically acclaimed games of all time gave us a slew of new content and updates alongside its release on the Xbox One and PlayStation 4, with me of course playing the Xbox One version. I was actually just playing the title as recently as last week. This is the game that I have the most time played on out of any game I've ever played on Xbox, and boy does this game sure pack a lot of fun into one disc. Halo Reach. I don't have much true vivid recollection of playing through the original 3 Halo games, but that all changed with the release of Halo 3 ODST and Halo Reach shortly after. Although ODST was a great game, nothing will beat the fun I had in my personal favorite Halo game, Halo Reach. From grinding the campaign and defeating it within a week of the game's release, to spending hours each night after I got home from school playing online multiplayer with some of my closest friends. Halo Reach is the Halo game that I had the most in-depth attachment to, and we'll have to wait and see if Halo Infinite can change that when it's released next year. MLB 2K13. As a massive, die-hard sports fan, I have played my fair share of sports games in the past, but out of all of them, MLB 2K13 stands alone as my favorite sports game. Spending days in this title back in the day grinding franchise mode, and of course kickstarting the dominant career of my stud, MyPlayer, who, by the way, holds every single season hitting record imaginable, holding down the hot corner as a perennial all-star. If only one day we could possibly get another MLB 2K, but one can only hope. Mario Super Sluggers. Now we are going straight from a realistic baseball game to one that is arguably the furthest thing from realistic. Mario Super Sluggers brought the intensity of a real baseball game as I grinded through the story mode, adding new players to my roster in an attempt to field a strong enough team to clash with and take down the mighty Bowser star-studded team at his castle. This game brought so many of my favorite Mario characters together on one baseball diamond, giving me the opportunity to play my favorite sport with one of my favorite video game characters. Hey Nintendo! Maybe we can get a sequel? It's fine, but I'm sure they're watching. Pokémon Platinum. Now, for those of you who couldn't tell from all the scripts I've written in the past, there is one gaming franchise that is undoubtedly my favorite of all time. You'll be seeing more than one Pokémon game in this video, starting off with what I believe is the first game that I purchased with my own money, Pokémon Platinum. Pokémon Platinum was designed to be the ultimate Pokémon title, and at the time of its release, it certainly was. The game combined all the fantastically successful features and aspects of Diamond and Pearl and mixed them with new features, and created such a stunning title for the Nintendo DS. This game was not my first Pokémon game, but maybe the one that truly kickstarted my love for the franchise as a whole. I've played through this generation more times than I can count on my fingers. By the way, that means more than 10. And hopefully I will get to take Piplup on a journey through a new and revamped Sinnoh region to be showcased in a Generation 4 remake. Wii Sports Resort. The next honorable mention is actually quite ironic because it is a game that has been a large part of meme culture recently, stemming around, of course, the legendary Matt. Wii Sports Resort is a title that was designed for fun, and that is just truly what it gave me all those years ago. Wii Sports Resort gave us one of my personal favorite locations in any Nintendo title, the Great Woohoo Island. This beautifully designed island gave us a variety of different game modes to partake in, as well as my personal favorite, flying around the island in the plane, getting to see all of the great landmarks and discover them up close. This is even another game that we could use a remake of on the Nintendo Switch. LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga. Other than Pokémon, Star Wars is my favorite franchise of all time. Just another series of movies, games, and toys that has brought me so much joy. One of the most infamous Star Wars media of all time is the LEGO Star Wars brand, arguably the most popular brand of LEGO. And with these Star Wars branded LEGOs came LEGO Star Wars video games, both of which were combined in LEGO Star Wars: The Complete Saga, a game that I have a bunch of very fond memories in. As a Star Wars fan, it was so joyful to get to play through all of these scenes from the movies I enjoyed so much. I even recently went back and played the mobile version of the game, which I beat but didn't get near 100% completion like I did back in the day on the Nintendo Wii. And to my personal delight, we will be getting an updated and revamped version of this LEGO Star Wars title in the form of LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga sometime next year after the release of the final Saga film this December. As good as that game could be, there is no way it will top my personal love for the Complete Saga. Mario Kart for the Wii. The next honorable mention is yet another nostalgic Nintendo title, also coming from the Nintendo Wii console. The Mario Kart series has had many different iterations over the years, and I, for the most part, have personally played all but a few of them. But out of all of them, there is one version in particular that I had the most fun in, spent the most time in, and just have the most love for. That is the Nintendo Wii version. Whether it's being able to use the steering wheel device to enhance the gameplay experience, the new courses that were added, or maybe just pure nostalgia value, this game is certainly my favorite among the Mario Kart games, and finds itself just missing out on being in my top 10 favorite games of all time. Animal Crossing City Folk. Now, these honorable mentions have been in no particular order whatsoever, as it was easier to just randomize the order than for me to have to pick and choose between these games as well, as it was already hard enough for me to put the top 10 games in a definitive order. But out of all these honorable mentions, there is only one that I can say truly just missed being in my top 10, and is for sure my 11th favorite game of all time. And that is why I saved Animal Crossing City Folk for the end of my honorable mentions. This game gave me a great open world-like experience back in the day, prompting me to play this same title weekly, if not almost daily, for about a year and a half straight. There was a never-ending amount of content, with a new slew of items being introduced to me every single day upon walking into Nook's shop, or even checking my mailbox for cool gifts from other villagers, or even some of those surprise items from Nintendo, my personal favorite being the black Nintendo DS couch. This game brought me into the Animal Crossing series, one that I am now deeply invested in, patiently waiting for the release of Animal Crossing New Horizons early next year. And now, with all of the honorable mentions out of the way, it's time to get into the heart of the list, my personal top 10 games of all time. Star Wars Battlefront 2, 2005. Now, I'm finally getting into the 10 games that I deem my 10 favorite games of all time. This list is going to feature a variety of my favorite franchises, and I'm kicking it off with the original Star Wars Battlefront 2. They say that at least 90% of remakes can never capture the same greatness and nostalgia of an original, and to me that certainly holds true with Battlefront 2. I personally have nothing against EA's Star Wars Battlefront 2, as I truly love that game, and believe people got it all wrong in the hysteria regarding the game. but my liking of EA's version of this series could never surpass my love for the original Battlefront 2. Widely regarded as the greatest Star Wars game of all time, my personal favorite still holds up well to this day, as I actually recently played when it was the free game with gold on Xbox Live. And going back and playing this game, even though there was no online multiplayer available, really opened my mind back up to how great this game truly is, and brought back all the fond memories I have of this game. I spent many nights on my family's desktop computer playing the series of clone missions, truly immersing myself into what it was like to be a clone back in the days of the Republic. Every mission was carefully crafted, as each one had a story to tell about the legion of clones you are paired with, narrated by the same voice actor of the clones in the prequel trilogy of the Star Wars franchise. This game also brought me my first real multiplayer experience, and a great co-op experience as well, with friends. Countless hours were spent flying around in all-out galactic space warfare at friends' houses, the only time I would ever settle with playing a game like this on PlayStation, because Xbox is just far superior. This game has a special place in the hearts of all of the Star Wars fanbase, and it certainly has a big place in mine, being my 10th favorite game of all time. The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. In the gaming YouTube industry, they say that you can't be biased when judging how great games truly are, and over my time writing here for Game Domain, I have taken that notion to heart, and I believe I can truly and confidently say that I have put forth as little bias as possible in my career. We have a video on our channel that is now over a year old, and at the time of its release was Game Domain's biggest flagship video. That video is our top 10 greatest Nintendo games of all time, a video that we believe would have the exact same rankings if we released it again today. I personally wrote that video, and did so without putting any bias forth in my writing, otherwise there would have been a more heavy showing of Pokémon games. But the game that found itself at the #1 spot on that list also finds itself on my countdown here today, and my placement of this title as the greatest Nintendo game of all time was in no way based off my true love and personal attachment for this title, but rather the undeniable fact that this particular game might very well just be the greatest game ever crafted in all of gaming, not just Nintendo. And while that point can certainly be disagreed with, there is no question that The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time would be in the discussion of greatest games of all time. This game brought me so much joy, happiness, and even a great deal of frustration back in the day when I first played through it. By the way, I'm talking to you, Mr. Water Temple. Now, I do have to admit I did not own the original N64 version of Ocarina of Time when I was a kid, but rather the version that came in the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition for the Nintendo Gamecube, which me and my 2 older brothers, along with millions of others, received as a bonus for pre-ordering The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker back in 2002. I played through Ocarina of Time when I was very young, not even in the double digits, and all of the memories I made during this playthrough still resonate and come across my mind today when I think about this game. Ocarina of Time is truly a masterpiece in and of itself, and I have enjoyed so much of the time I got to spend while playing this title. In the past when I was younger, and even when I go back and play it today. I mean, earlier this summer I even went back and started another save file in the game, and I have already made a decent amount of progress. As somebody who grew up playing the Legend of Zelda games, Ocarina of Time always stood out to me as my favorite among them for a very long time. The peaceful and serene landscape of Hyrule that I came to know so well was accompanied by one of the greatest soundtracks of all time. Just about every aspect of this game puts a smile on my face as I look back on playing this game as a little kid, and I could only serve it justice by making sure it found its way onto my top 10 favorite games of all time list at the #9 spot, along with it being objectively the greatest game of all time, in my personal opinion. Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver. As I touched on earlier in this video, there is no other gaming franchise that I love more than Pokémon. The series that truly got me into gaming and gave me the love for not only the Pokémon franchise as a whole, but opened the door to me trying out a slew of other Nintendo titles that my older brothers owned. It was hard for me not to come up with this list, and there was already 4 Pokémon titles that I had in consideration, but I ended up going with just 3 to be acknowledged in this video. In my opinion, Generation 2 might objectively be the all-around greatest generation the series had to offer. And when I first heard of the announcement of a remake of the originals, I immediately became joyful, but reluctant at the same time. due to the fact that I realized that they would almost certainly not live up to the same greatness that the originals had. And if you are a frequent viewer of this channel, you might recognize a little analogy that I use all the time when talking about sequel games, using both Pokémon Gold and Silver and Star Wars Episode 5 The Empire Strikes Back as my two examples of sequels blowing their predecessors out of the water. And with my view of Gold and Silver so fond, never in my wildest dreams did I think these remakes could top them. But wow! I could not have been more wrong. Pokémon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, more specifically Soul Silver, which was my primary version, gave me some of the most memorable times of my entire gaming childhood. I vividly remember the car ride to Toys R Us with my two older brothers to go and pick up the remakes, which we had pre-ordered months prior. I had my beat-up blue Nintendo DS with me in the car, and I quickly inserted the game cartridge into my console right when we got back into the car to take the 15-minute drive home. That night, I played all the way up until I got to the national park. At the national park, I remember grinding my starter all the way up to a Feraligatr just to be able to see his sprite follow me around thanks to the coolest feature in any Pokemon game. These games gave me a greater and more in-depth look at what the Johto region was really like, with improved graphics showing me every little detail, from your reflection glistening in the little lakes inside the Union Cave, to the little flames on the back of your Typhlosion shooting out while you have it walking behind you. This game brought us a redone and better version of the Ultimate Pokemon universe, being able to explore 2 whole regions, obtain 18 badges, defeat Team Rocket yet again, and finally duke it out with a legendary Red on Mount Silver. I can still vividly remember taking on Red with my team of low-level 70s Pokemon, who were more than out-leveled, but were certainly never unmatched, as I fought till the very end to beat the legend of all Pokemon known as Red. And I will certainly never forget the joy I had when I saw the ... text after I defeated him, only for him to flee the top of the mountain in defeat. This game also gave me one of my personal favorite musical tracks in all of Pokemon, Route 47. The beautiful cliffside route that gave us a blaring new theme to fall in love with, along with the opportunity to catch a Hoenn legendary in the cave along the cliffside, made this route one of the best in Pokemon, and arguably my personal favorite. These games gave so much new excitement to the Pokemon series and just added to my love for all the games, making them my 8th favorite game of all time. Modern Warfare 2. When it comes to the discussion of gaming's greatest of all time, there is certainly more than a few franchises that come to mind right out of the gate. Some of them I've already talked about in this video, but one of them is making its only appearance in my list at this number 7 spot. The pioneers of competitive multiplayer shooting games can be labeled as 2 franchises, Halo and, of course, Call of Duty. Now, I have played Call of Duty games since the release of the 3rd Call of Duty title, but the first game I can vividly remember was the original Modern Warfare when I played it back on the Xbox 360. I regard this game as having the single greatest campaign in the history of gaming, and of course, that's just my personal opinion. But that game doesn't even make it on this list. The game that does is its sequel, Modern Warfare 2. In my opinion, the greatest multiplayer game of all time. Backing up its predecessor with another incredible campaign to add into the Modern Warfare story arc, Modern Warfare 2 also gave us a heavy focus on online play, a focus that you could even argue was more on the multiplayer than the actual single-player campaign itself. Modern Warfare 2 was one of the first non-Nintendo games that I truly got into and had no problem grinding away at, as I have a fond memory of finally reaching that max level. Spec Ops was also an incredible addition and is by far my favorite game mode in all of Call of Duty, and possibly in all shooter games. My attachment to Spec Ops even caused me to rebuy Modern Warfare 2 on my PC, along with a friend to go back and complete all of the Spec Ops missions on Veteran, but we only got so far before we got burned out and stopped playing. The multiplayer brought me endless amounts of fun, coming home from school every day and dashing right to my Xbox to play this game as much as possible, and the cycle repeated itself for weeks on end. One of my personal favorite video game characters of all time is Soap, and this game's campaign gave me a look at the true personality and life that Soap brought to the game, because in the original you didn't get to see it as much due to him being one of the playable characters. This game gave me so much joy, and I couldn't be happier that we are getting an extension of the Modern Warfare series later this year. Minecraft. The next game on my list has once again become one of the most popular games on the market, as for the first time since the game's peak back in 2014, it is the most searched game on Google, which is a pretty big deal for any gaming title. Although a cliche choice on favorite games of all time lists, Minecraft is a game that has taken up a large chunk of my life for over 10 years now. I remember walking downstairs to find my older brother playing a brand new game on the computer back in 2009, and I questioned him as to what game it was. He told me he was playing a brand new game called Minecraft, and I immediately needed to give it a try. Once he got off the computer, I hopped on and gave it a try. I started my first world, one that I still have to this day, and began the journey throughout the beautiful game that Minecraft is. Since then, I have played countless days in that game, as it's actually the game that I have the most amount of time played in. Over the years, I have built dozens of massive cities equipped with tall skyscrapers piercing through the rendered clouds, massive sports stadiums or arenas, and carefully planned out roads leading every which way around the town. Minecraft is a game that is just so expansive, and to me there is almost nothing you can't build in it. While most people enjoy the survival aspect of the game more than the building side of things, I am the opposite. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love playing survival as well, but enjoy building creative ways just that much more. I, like many, own Minecraft on many different platforms. I have owned the original Java version since the very beginning days of Alpha, and since then have bought the Xbox 360 edition, Xbox One edition, Nintendo Switch edition, and even owned the Pocket edition from way back in the day when it was initially released. This game has surged once again in popularity as of late, and it truly does put a smile on my face that so much of both the older gaming generations and the younger generations are all playing this fantastic title that has meant so much to me over the past 10 years. Super Smash Bros. Melee. Now we are getting into the cream of the crop, the games that to me just mean so much to me that it's almost hard to describe the love I have for these titles in just a few minutes. These next 5 games actually vary in terms of types of games, as really all of them are essentially different from each other. As most of you guys may not know, my favorite console of all time, although it's very close and a difficult choice to make, is the Nintendo Gamecube. So much of my gaming childhood was spent on this console, playing game after game, going through my older brother's gaming libraries one by one. This console gave me so much back in the day, and I still go back and play it fairly often, even nowadays. And although I spent so much time playing games on that console, there are only a few games that I truly adored and fell in love with. One of them already being showcased on this list in the form of the Legend of Zelda Collector's Edition of Ocarina of Time. I will tell you guys right now, there are 2 more GameCube titles to appear within this top 5, one of which may not be that surprising, and the latter of which probably shocking to most of you. But to start off the top 5, at number 5 I have Super Smash Bros. Melee. Wow, where should I even begin with this game? So many great memories of me getting absolutely obliterated by my brothers, and then finally being able to compete with them when I got good enough. This game got me completely entrenched into the Super Smash Bros. Series, one that I still love to this day, as I frequently load up Ultimate on my Switch, and even take trips back down memory lane and pop in Brawl or Melee once in a while as well. This game also had me go through a slew of different mains, ranging from the early childhood days of Pichu, Mario, Dr. Mario, Falco, Mewtwo, and finally setting on Sheik when I actually got good enough at the game. And I am proud to say that Sheik stayed strong as my main for all these years until even Ultimate. Melee is still the centerpiece of fun at some of my closest friends' houses, even becoming sort of a yearly tournament thing. Playing this game back in the day even shed light on all of the Nintendo characters I was not familiar with, such as the Earthbound and Ice Climbers games. This game has and will always remain my favorite Super Smash Bros. Game, and in my opinion is the greatest in the series, as nothing can ever top the fast-paced intensity this game offered. Melee will always be one of the games that enhanced my love for all of the Nintendo franchises as a whole, and created an everlasting passion for the Super Smash Bros. Franchise. Kirby Air Ride. Now, the very first game I touched on in my honorable mentions was Mercenaries 2, a game that probably not many of you have heard of. This next game is the other Nintendo GameCube title I was alluding to in my previous entry, and this is another game that a lot of you might not have even heard of. There are some titles that, although they may not be all that popular, it is so easy for me to develop a devout love and passion for the game, especially if it entails one of my personal favorite characters or franchises. This is specifically the case with the game that comes in as my 4th favorite game of all time. As I said earlier in this video, the Pokémon franchise is by far my favorite gaming franchise, with truly nothing coming close. With that being the case, my favorite Nintendo characters are for the large part a bunch of Pokémon first, and then other Nintendo characters after that. But if you leave out any Pokémon from a personal favorite characters list, I have a definite number 1 choice. For a series that has been around for a lot longer than people think, I was only ever truly brought into this series passionately with the release of this number 4 game. And the game that takes this spot is from a franchise that is spearheaded by a little pink ball of awesomeness that happens to have hands and 2 feet. Kirby is by far my favorite non-Pokemon Nintendo character, and since the release of Kirby Air Ride, I have been fully in love with this franchise. Every new game brings about a fun and entertaining adventure, and in my opinion, none better than Kirby Air Ride, the game that is most different from all others in the series. Kirby Air Ride is a unique taste on a racing game, combining something that has more of a Mario Kart-like feel with a completely different franchise, which is of course Kirby. There is just something about this game that makes it feel so incredibly unique to me, different from any racing game and any Nintendo game to this point. The ability to choose from dozens of different vehicles to ride on many different tracks make it seem like just another racing game at first glance, but there are so many unique aspects that make this game different. All of the vehicles of different qualities, with my personal favorite being the Warp Star, which is the base normal vehicle, but to me is just the all-around most balanced and best vehicle. My personal favorite game mode is the City Trial game mode, in which you have the ability to roam around the city map and choose from any vehicle placed in the underground parking garage. And you can explore all around the map, from the subway station in the northeast, to the volcano in the northwest, and even the massive forest in the southwest, which has a beautiful river and waterfall for you to ride around as well. In this game mode, you can collect different pieces to eventually obtain the ultimate vehicles, the legendary Dragoon and Hydra, which are featured in the Super Smash Bros. Series as well. I also love that all my time and effort into the game was rewarded by eventually playing enough to unlock both Meta Knight and King Dedede, who make for a fun time as well. In City Trial mode, you can even hop out of the car and explore around as regular Kirby, essentially making it just a regular 3D Kirby game, which is a gimmick that I always loved. This largely underrated title is one that I will never forget, as all the memories I made playing it will last a lifetime. This is one of the few Gamecube games I go back and play regularly, on a monthly basis to be more specific. Kirby Air Ride is by far my favorite game on the Gamecube and finds its way onto this list as my 4th favorite game of all time. Oh, and by the way, I know I've been talking a lot about wanting certain games that I talked about in this video getting remakes on the Nintendo Switch, and I just want to reiterate the fact that if Nintendo asked me to choose just one game that would get remade, I would probably pick Kirby Air Ride. There is nothing stopping me from wanting Kirby Air Ride 2, a topic that might very well be discussed in future videos. So until Nintendo listens, ride on, Kirby. Ride on. Red Dead Redemption 2. As most of you have probably realized throughout this video, and maybe even in all the scripts I've written over the past 2 years, I'm a sucker for old games, and even more specifically, originals. So that is why this next game may come as a complete shock to most of you guys watching this video, as this next game is not even a year old. This game is actually yet another sequel that I have praised endlessly, and right off the bat when I played this game, I knew that it would not only rank among my favorite games of all time, but objectively be one of the greatest. When Red Dead Redemption 2 was first announced, I got a bit excited, but truthfully nothing drastic. I remember playing the original Red Dead games, but I don't really have a vivid recollection of my time spent in those. All I really remember about the original Red Dead Redemption title was fooling around with friends in the online. And just some of the main characters, really just names, that's all, like John Marston and Dutch, just to name a few. But as it got closer to this game's release, I felt that there was just something about this game, as the gameplay and trailers I saw really impressed me. I had already pre-ordered the game, and now it was just time to wait for a few months for it to come out. And I can assure you, I was not disappointed one bit. Right out of the gate, this game blew me away. I remember thinking, how is it possible for a game to look and play this incredible? The graphics and gameplay mechanics are by far the greatest I have ever seen in a video game, period. And the story, in my opinion, ranks only second to the original Modern Warfare when you're talking about campaigns. This story brought us everything, from incredibly interesting and in-depth character development, character-on-character interaction that blew me away, carefully thought-out missions, and of course, who could forget that incredible ending? I beat the entire story within a week of getting the game, dumping hour after hour into the game's rich story. Every mission was just so interesting, and it all felt like it had a major purpose in this massive story. Everything just had some sort of special meaning. And to see the reiterations of John Marston and Dutch van der Linde in a whole new light, with the same voices, looks, and personalities as I remembered from the original, and even though you knew what was going to happen to them, the story was still so unpredictable. I was of course one of the good players during the story, racking up honor even though I had no clue it would give Arthur a more peaceful death at the end. And that final mission was one of the most gut-wrenching I have ever played. Arguably my favorite mission in any game ever. I grew a deep emotional attachment to Arthur Morgan as a character, and his final moments really had me on the edge of my seat. I made it through the whole story spoiler-free, so it was a complete delight when I got to play as John Marston at the end of the game, and I really enjoyed the added story at the end, bringing me yet another climactic ending. Red Dead Redemption 2 gave me so much endless fun, and I am actually considering going back and replaying the story sometime at the start of the fall, as I would love to delve back into this incredible game. I didn't think that I would ever have a game this recent on a list like this, because I really am a very nostalgic person. This makes me more inclined to have older games from when I was younger on this list, but this game's greatness and my love for it just couldn't be placed anywhere else on this list. Red Dead 2 is a game that I will revisit 10 years later and still love every moment of it, giving me the same feeling that I get for all the old games I still play today. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. The game that sits at number 2 for me is actually another fairly recent game, but one that has been out for about 2.5 years now. Back when the Nintendo Switch first came out in March of 2017, I really had no intention of getting it. I had barely even heard about the console coming out, and I didn't really care to spend $300 to pick it up. But later that year, I truly wanted to get the console for Christmas, as I really missed getting to play new Nintendo games. Up until getting the console on Christmas Day, I had never even seen a video or picture of what the console looked like, how it ran, or any games on it. On Christmas that year, I also got 2 games, Super Mario Odyssey and The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild, the latter of which is the game that finds itself as my second favorite game of all time. Until that point, I had not even seen any pictures of gameplay from these 2 titles, with the only pictures I saw being the ones on the front cover of the box. As a lifelong, die-hard Legend of Zelda fan, I knew that I had to play this new title as much as possible, and I sure did. I grinded in that game for about 2 weeks straight, mixing in some Odyssey play as well, and ended up defeating Ganon at the end of 2 weeks. This game gave me a glimpse of Hyrule I never thought was possible. I vividly remember being amazed at the brilliance that Ocarina of Time displayed when I played through that title, making Hyrule feel like a real world. Little did I know that all these years later there would be a game that gave us such a vibrant and expansive Hyrule, more vibrant and expansive than I've ever seen. This game's beauty, mechanics, story, soundtrack, just everything combined to give me one of the greatest and most fun experiences I've had ever playing a video game. I even went ahead and bought both DLCs in the summer of 2018 and completed all the added quests, along with going back and 100%ing the game fully by making it through all 120 shrines. Earlier this summer, I also went back and finally attacked something that I'd been putting off for a long time, completing the game in Master Mode. Going through the game a second time only 2 months ago has the game fresh in my mind yet again, and I feel like it was even better the second time I played through it. The game will always give the player that sense of peacefulness while strolling around the world, with a constant score in the background hitting notes on the piano, while the wind blows through the grass on the ground and the trees of Hyrule Field, and then the ominous and menacing song that plays when you are at Hyrule Castle. The buildup of true hatred from all the characters towards Ganon fuels you in your final duel with him at the castle, and makes victory so much sweeter. Out of all the expansive open-world titles I have played, some of which you already saw on this list, to me, this one is my favorite. With hundreds upon hundreds of items and pieces of armor to collect, there is a never-ending amount of stuff to do. The open, vast world has so much to explore, and I feel like I might have very well been through all of it on my quest to go through all 120 shrines. This game will always have a very special place in my heart, as it finds itself as my second favorite game of all time. Pokémon Sapphire and Emerald. Throughout this list, I have said that many games have had true impacts on my life, changing the way I look at gaming as a whole. I have also talked about my favorite franchise being the Pokémon franchise, one that I have been entrenched in since I was born. Back when I was 4 years old, I was always watching my brothers play through Pokémon games, and I also wished that I could play through one on my own. Eventually, my brother gave me his copy of a Pokémon game for me to play, and on my brand new Nintendo DS. I popped the deep blue Game Boy Advance cartridge into the bottom part of my DS, where you could play Game Boy Advance games in. The white text amidst the black screen appeared before me, reading Pokémon, Nintendo Creatures Inc., and Game Freak Inc. The Game Freak logo then appeared before me in front of a forest background with a serene track playing in the background. I watched the opening cutscene with a smile on my face as I then saw the title screen, with the legendary Kyogre and the words reading Pokémon Sapphire. I immediately clicked New Game and began my journey through Hoenn. I chose Mudkip as my first Pokémon, leading to that line staying as my favorite Pokémon all the way up until today, as well as the Water type being my favorite type. I still choose the Water type starter in every new game that has come out since. I actually remember a lot about this playthrough even though it was so long ago, and my original party still exists today, making their way all the way to my Ultra Sun copy. When I beat the Elite Four, my party consisted of Swampert, who is now a level 100, Swellow, who is also now a level 100, Walrein, Kyogre, and Glalie. These 5 Pokemon still mean so much to me, all the way up until today. Now, I also have Pokemon Emerald tied at this spot because I love that game almost as much, but didn't think it needed its own spot, because the games are very similar. Emerald is just an ultimate version of the Generation 3 games, adding so many new features that I grew to love as well, like the Battle Frontier. I also have another unique attachment to Pokemon Emerald, being that on that game, I was able to get multiple Pokemon to level 100. On that title alone, I was able to get my Blaziken and Rayquaza to level 100, and I also got my Venusaur and Mewtwo to level 100, which I traded over for my Leaf Green. My first journey through Hoenn at such a young age is a memory that will always stick with me, and is my favorite gaming memory. This journey kickstarted my love for gaming, and more specifically my love for the incredible Pokémon franchise. Since I played this game, I own all of the following games in the Pokémon series: Pokémon Red, Pokémon Blue, Pokémon Crystal, Pokémon Ruby, Pokémon Sapphire, Pokémon Emerald, Pokémon Diamond, Pokémon Pearl, Pokémon Platinum, Pokémon Heart Gold, Pokémon Soul Silver, Pokémon Black, Pokémon White, Pokémon White 2, Pokémon Y, Pokémon Sun, Pokémon Moon, Pokémon Ultra Sun, Pokémon Ultra Moon, and finally, Pokémon Let's Go Pikachu. That is a total of 20 Pokémon games that I own, all because of the love for the series I developed from Pokémon Sapphire. And that is not even counting all the spin-off console games I own as well, such as XD, Gale of Darkness, and Colosseum on the Gamecube. No other game that I've ever played has meant so much to me or had as big of an impact on me as Pokémon Sapphire had. With all of that being said, Pokémon Sapphire is my personal favorite game of all time. Oh, and by the way, that will never, ever change. Wow, that sure was a long one. Please let us know what you guys thought of this video and Domain 76's top 10 in the comment section below. While you're down there, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. And don't forget to check out some of our more recent videos, which we will leave links to in the description, as well as links for our Patreon and Discord. Check out our Patreon, where you can donate to our cause and contribute to the great videos we produce. Some benefits of becoming a Patreon member include seeing future videos a day early, as well as having your name displayed at the end of our content. Our Discord is open to you guys to come and chat with our staff members and each other about gaming, so don't be afraid to join. We have great discussions about gaming topics in our Discord, and it is a great way to communicate and even play with fellow gaming fanatics and viewers of our channel. Down in the description, we also have the links to our merchandise stores, as there you can purchase an array of Game Domain merch from mouse pads to even phone cases. We also are now over 25,000 subs, and we just want to once again thank all of you guys for all the love and support you have given us these past 3.5 years. Stay tuned to Game Domain for more great content, and thanks for watching